Yo, it's Guido coming at you with a tactics talk and another What's the Best video. Today we're going to tackle the Tier 6 TDs. What's the best Tier 6 TD? We're going to look at the numbers, talk a little bit about it. I think there's actually some pretty interesting data on this one. It's a small group of tanks. You can see all of them here in my garage. There's 15 of them counting the premium tanks. At least that's what's on the list for NA, and that's what I've got in my garage right here. You can see I've got the AT8. That's up there for a reason. We'll talk about that as we go. But the stats on these Tier 6 TDs show a couple, what I think anyway, interesting things. I'm just going to give you my analysis from my informed position on this. I've played all these tanks quite a bit, actually. Done pretty well. I've 3-marked some of the crummier ones, or things, or tanks, TDs that you would think were the crummier ones, like the ARL, the Churchill GC, all that good stuff, Churchill gun carrier. But we'll talk about it. I think there's a couple surprises in here, things that you might not have known, or at least I didn't necessarily know. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. Last time I've done, last two videos we did mediums and then heavies. You guys had a lot of good input in there. So we'll just take a look at my take on it, and we'll go from there, see what you guys have to say. So I've got the AT8 right here. We're going to call up the website. Again, this is tomato.gg. It's for NA. That's what we're looking at. I'm not going to worry about EU too much since most of us play on NA. The numbers are similar but not the same. So it shows a little bit about the difference in the meta in the two servers. It's not a huge difference, but people's proclivities for different tanks and doing well do change a little bit between the servers, which is pretty interesting. All right. We have Tier 6. I've got all of them selected, so we will look at the premiums and the regular tech tree tanks, and right now we've got Win8. So let's go ahead and look at Win8. Right off the bat, you can see we've got the Excalibur up on top right there. I thought that was kind of interesting because I don't know if anybody considers the Excalibur as the #1 Tier 6, but in terms of Win8, it is relatively low battle count at 24,000. This is a tank that you have to get. It's not that hard to get, but you do have to have some small amount of consistency and enjoyment of the game and be somewhat experienced. All right, you don't really, I mean, you can get it pretty quickly, but you get my drift. A super casual player may not have an Excalibur. There you go. That's what we'll say about that. And it's a pretty far outlier because we're talking 1438, 138 above the next. And you can see these are all pretty tightly grouped from there. 1303 down to 1217 doesn't have a lot of difference. Obviously, 1303 from 1005 on the IKV is quite a bit. 300 is huge between those two. But this is a bit of an outlier up here in terms of Win8 for the Excalibur. We've got the Su-100Y next, the Dicker Max, and the first tech tree that comes in is the Su-100. A couple other surprises on this, for me anyway. Look where the Churchill GC is. This is widely panned as one of the worst tanks in the entire game. It just isn't in terms of Win8. Again, this has to do with expected, so I'll try to give as many caveats and background and as much context, in my opinion anyway, that I can through some of these comments right here. There's a lot going into all of these numbers, and I don't think you can simply say it's the best because of X. The closest I will come to that is when we get to win rate. If your purpose is to win, it's pretty clear what the best tank is. It's the one with the best win rate. These are all recents in the last 60 days, so the current meta, all that good stuff. We can discard past performance to a large extent. If you want to know what the best tank in the history of World of Tanks was in win rate, then you could sort it that way as well. But we're looking at the last 60 days. If you're going to play the game right now, what's the best tank? Well, if it was Win8, you would get yourself an Excalibur because that's the one that's cranking out the most Win8. For win rate, it's a different tank. All right. So that being said, the Churchill GC is actually not doing badly in terms of Win8. Again, back to the expecteds, that's a thing. Those can vary by tank depending on a lot of things. It does have a very small sample size in terms of its comparison to the rest of them at 3,000. It is certainly an outlier in battles. I mean, it's 19,000 less than the next, and that's the ARL, than the Excalibur. So it just doesn't have a lot of battles. Anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting that it was that far up. We'll see how it fares during the rest of the sorts here. T78 is another surprise, in my opinion. It's pretty low compared to what I thought it might be. 1188 is not that far out, but still 1438 for the Excalibur, and it's Math and Public almost 300, say 250 higher. At least the Excalibur is, than the T-78. But look at the battles. That's still pretty solid for what is, I think, the highest battle count. No, Hellcat Jackson is third. Okay, so Hellcat's still up there. That surprised me a little bit that people are playing it that much still. May not surprise some of you. I do spend some time at Tier 6, but not a whole bunch. Only when I'm grinding out my 100 Battle Challenge am I down there a whole bunch. So I thought those are interesting. There's the Hellcat. He's pretty low. I think a lot of people would say Hellcat is the best Tier 6 TD. All right, that's where we get into talking about how much it's played, and it's diluted by the number of players playing it. So it still does okay, even with so many players, and one must assume a good number of bad players. If you just look at the bell curve of players, most of them are in the middle range. I wouldn't say bad, but most of them are in the middle range on the bell curve. So there's clearly a lot of average skilled players playing it. So that is in there as well. And that's where you get into tank curves and stuff like that. But we're just looking at the solid numbers. All right. IKV, not that surprising. ARL's down here, the Nashorn. All right, let's sort by win rate, because we're gonna get a little tale start to be told here. That surprised me. That's the AT8. That's what I showed you when we came into the video. The AT8 right now in 62,000 battles. Right now, if you were anybody really, and you said, well, let's play the tank with the highest current win rate at Tier 6 TDs, you would jump in an AT8, and that might surprise you a bit. There's some other things going on here, I think, that are important, because one of the things, well, there's a couple things that predict win rate, which we're going to get to in a minute. Obviously, DPG is one of them. Now, when we switch to DPG, the AT8 drops way down here. Drops way down. Let's just go to Win 8 real quickly. Where did it live in Win 8? It was here, about the middle. We go to DPG, it drops down, and we get the Excalibur back up top. So that's twice we've seen the Excalibur near the top or at the top. We get to DPG, the T-78 jumps up and is now competing for best Tier 6 TD. The 100Y is sort of hanging out pretty low on win rate in terms of the guys near the top. Number 2 on Win 8, so we've got some of the usual suspects. Dicker Max makes a appearance of kind of a solid 4th, hanging out in 3rd and 4th, and the Dicker Max is doing pretty well around there. All right, so the AT8 drops down. Let's go to frags. Excalibur, T-78, 100Y. The Su-100 creeps up again. It comes in there as a tech tree. Dicker Max drops down to 5th, and our AT8 on frags is low at 0.74, or lower than the things we talked about. Notice the Churchill GC, let's just go back, is kind of hanging out down here. Not really at the bottom. It just isn't. What is at the bottom is the ARL 39 and the Nashorn kind of struggling down here, and the IKV all living down near the bottom of all these things. The ARL, to me personally, now this is one of those tanks, we haven't discussed this yet, this is one of those tanks that I actually kind of like and think is pretty good, but by the numbers is pretty bad. So I actually do pretty decently in the ARL V39, but overall, if you're just rando player going, well, let's play a tank that's terrible at Tier 6 TD, that's one of the ones you would pick right there. So frags, we've got, like I said, the Dicker Max. We go to damage ratio. Dicker Max jumps up to the top, fairly low hit points, and has that big gun. That's not that big of a surprise. It dishes out the pain. What doesn't it have? Why doesn't it have, a higher win rate than it does, which is decent, or potentially, top win 8, things like that? Well, because it just is not very flexible, right? It just isn't very flexible. Yeah, it can dish out the pain, but mid to end game, when it needs to move around and get things done, things that win games, it doesn't do that very well. It doesn't do that very well. So it's going to struggle a little bit in some of the, but it will punch out some pain. T-78 now is kind of hanging out near the top. Frags, DPG, damage ratio, win rate, like we said, on 3rd, and just win 8. Really, that's dropping it down, and it's got that large amount of battles being played right there. Kills to death. The Excalibur is back near the top, with the T-78 hanging out at number 2. And we've still got some of the usual suspects. Su-100, a pretty solid best of the tech tree TDs hanging out. The other tale that's being told here, we haven't discussed it yet, is the fact that the premium TDs are just playing better than the Tier 6 tech trees. That's pretty obvious based on how clustered they are near the top, except in a few cases. Now here's that predictor of win rate, one of the more solid predictors of win rate. I'm not saying it's the only one. DPG, all these other numbers are predictors, but a survival a high survival rate is a pretty good predictor of win rate because you last to the middle to late game where you can have an effect. One of the limits of the AT8, which is at the top of the survival, is that its mobility is a little bit suspect in terms of being able to get win rate, but yet again, it's still at the top. Isn't that interesting? So it's not a perfect correlation, is it? I just found that really fascinating. So the AT8 is at the top in survival. He drops down in the kills to death. They tend to take damage. Damage ratio is not great. In fact, it's last. So the AT8 is the last in damage ratio. I'm not that surprised. It's a bit of a pinata. It's made of armor. It's sort of meant to be an assault TD. People kind of drive it out into the open and get pounded. And so its damage to the damage it does to the damage it takes is low. Yet still, you're talking about the best in win rate right there. So it appears that while I was discussing the Dicker Max having a bit of an issue getting around, the AT8, while it has a bit of an issue getting around speed-wise, has the armor to survive the moves through open areas and spaces that the Dicker Max just won't get through. Right? Late game, mid game, you're trying to drive around, maybe make an assault, make a push into a cap, defend a cap. You know, you've been forced out into the open to change things. The Dicker's going to get shredded. The AT8 has a better capability to survive. So while they're both very slow and ungainly, the AT8 comes at you with the advantage of the armor, whereas the Dicker Max has the big gun, and provided it can stay hidden, can do great work. But you know, when you start talking about what I got to do at the end of the game to move around, the AT8 just does it better, and it's showed by the numbers right here. So what does this all come down to, really, at the end of the day? What is the best? So this one was different, right? For me, anyway. And I think because it was a smaller grouping of tanks, it was a little bit easier to see the movement within it. A lot of what I'm talking about you can probably find in the heavies and mediums that we didn't cover too much right there, because there are just so many tanks, it's hard to keep track of which one's moving where. And it's also difficult to just go, this is the best tier 6 TD because blah. Right? But I'm sort of hanging my hat on win rate. So let's go over here. The AT8, man. I mean, it just wins, baby. It just wins almost a percentage above, which is pretty large. But you're not doing bad with the Excalibur. If we go over here to win 8, the Excalibur's top. The win rate only drops to second. DPG is number 1. Frags is number 1. Damage ratio comes down a bit because it's a bit soft right there. So it does take hits that aren't saved by armor because it's very soft. Kill to death, it's number 1. Survival only, it goes pretty far down. Again, that's the armor problem. Excuse me. And spots. Third on spots. Spots, maybe something important for scouts. Perhaps to some extent for medium tanks, especially in terms of getting early assist and early shots. But for TDs, I don't know. You got to say it's the Excalibur, right? You got to say the Excalibur is number 1, with the caveat that it has a limited number or type or skill level, if you will, playing base, which may bring it up and percolate it towards the top just a little bit. You got to have a shout out to the T78, which gets into 3rd, and the AT8, which comes into 1st at win rate, because if you watch the T78, he's hanging out pretty solidly in number 2 and 3 slots. 2 all the way right here, damage ratio, kill to death, number 2. But so if you were talking about a tank that more people play, perhaps more accessible, more people have it, more popular, maybe it's the T78. If you're talking about just purely by the numbers, you want to win, you're going to go AT8 with Excalibur, and then for the rest of it, Excalibur. So I'm sort of parsing my opinion there just a little bit. If I had to be forced into it, I would say Excalibur just per the numbers. With, I think, a very interesting discussion for the AT8. There is an argument for it, although it's kind of all over the place. And a lot of my explanations of where it is sound a little bit like, I won't say excuses, but caveats or explanations potentially to maybe try to lift the AT up just a little bit, just because I'm so impressed by its win rate being so high. Talking it up maybe just a little bit. Plus, you got to love the dark horse that there is a tech tree tank challenging all of these overpowered, what I would call more than likely overpowered premiums or reward tanks in there. So Excalibur, I think, followed by the T78, and then followed up by the AT8 as a bit of a dark horse is how I would do the 1, 2, 3 ranking on Tier 6 TDs. I thought that was really kind of was different. I think a lot different than the way the mediums and the heavies went. There were some surprises in there, but this one really surprised me quite a bit. And I like that the GC was not down in the bottom of the basement as badly as I think some people think it is. You would have to give that, I think, to the ARL. But let's just take a look at that for a minute and see how we do with the last guys. The IKV sitting down at win 8, win 8. The IKV only up to 3rd worst. Nashorn's down there with the ARL. The usual suspects, IKV, ARL on DPG for frags. Those two guys, I mean, these two are really vying for worst out there. AT8 drops to the bottom in damage ratio. That is one knock against it. ARL's right there. IKV comes up just a little bit. Kills to death, ARL, IKV. So yeah, I think if we're gonna, maybe I should start adding that to these videos. You know, what's the worst one? Probably the IKV and the ARL. Really, they're really fighting, duking it out to be worst, right? Which one's first worst and which one is a second worst? I don't know. You be the judge on those. Let me know what you think down there in the in the comments. That is all I've got for today. Thanks for tuning in. You guys have a good, I don't know what day it is because I don't know when this video is going to come out. We will see ya. Thought I might try a little something different here. This is, no kidding, a live recording of a battle. I just grabbed my T78. We're not going to play the Excalibur. I have a couple Excalibur videos out recently, so you guys can see that. If you want, go back a few. Maybe I'll try to actually be clever about it and show some of that links kind of action, that link skill over there on my video. I don't know. Might not happen. We're bottom tier, so let's see what we can do with the T78. Even though I called the Excalibur number 1, we said the T78 was pretty solidly number 2. Probably should have done the AT8, but we'll go ahead and do this and see what happens. We're going to come up here and camp a Lima Ding Dang. This is a bit of a tough one. We do have 10 APCR. We are facing a Basante, a Super, and a 50 PR, and those are all pretty hard tanks for this thing to pen. So we're going to have to try to be as clever as possible with it. That is that's a hard ask for me, but maybe we'll get a free shot there. There we go. So we dropped 280 on the Basante. One nice thing about the T78 is its speed. So it's in between, I would say, a Hellcat and the, I think, Achilles or Jackson. Probably Jackson, actually. I think the Achilles is, what is that, a tier 5? I don't remember. But a Jackson and a Hellcat. So it has speed like the Hellcat does, not the same but decent, and has a little bit of armor but not quite as good as the Jackson. Not that you would necessarily, good job 3045, so you've just created armor for the bad guys there. Got guys over here, he's peeking through. Some fellas down in the south. We'll see if this guy's going to make a push. No, KB2 gets thumped. Chi-Ri, that's a strange place for Chi-Ri, and how is he? He's just out in the open. Okay, well, Otto Carius is probably about to get disintegrated, would be my guess here. Not going to get a shot on him there. He is not. Oh, he is going to come up. Oh, I think I hit him. Yep, I did hit him. Oh, I had a shot at him too. Okay. So the gun does take a little while to zoom in. We're taking it on the chin a little bit. I don't know why that 304 got himself so lit up, but he did. Let me get out of this bush because I can't really see what's going on over here. Oh, he's on this side. Glad I did that. Very glad I did this. He is still there. I think he's still there. We're going to give it one more shot, but the team is disintegrating on me. He was right there. I can't help you, man, if you're going to be like that. There's not a lot I can do for you. So you're going to back out. Oof, there we go. Right into the side of the turret. That works. Here comes a Tigre. I might get another shot on this guy. Didn't matter. Didn't need it. 50p TPPRs coming around behind those guys. We're going to go to APCR now. Expecting to try to engage the 50 TPPR. We got guys everywhere. This dude's right here on the edge. Is he been tracked? I like it. Ah! That got into the armor. Alright, so we got another guy coming up high here. Oh, there's that highlighting stuff working out for me. We might be trying to make a bit of a comeback here if I can just get some shots on these fellers. No, can't see him. He's behind something. Would like to get... Now, what's this guy doing now? It's over here. Oh, here we go. Oh. T20. Yeah, I'm trying, man. That didn't work. Is he going to keep coming? There we go. Super is coming up. There it is. A little shot on him. What's going on with over here? Nothing good. I'll tell you that for nothing. Is he going to open? Come out in the open? He might. Yes. There we go. And we got to back out of this because we're. There we go. Look what this guy did. Be nice. Oh, kidding me. Trying, man. Trying, my friend. Should have waited. This is not good, huh? Yeah, we're in big trouble here. Oh, huge trouble. So much trouble. All the trouble. Shot a lot of gold, these fellas. So one of the problems, obviously, with sitting back with TDs is that kind of stuff. You're not as... Let me get spotted by this guy quickly. I want to get around this corner so I only get shot by him. There we go. This dude is behind the rocks. No. That's such a bummer. He's gonna hit me. Four seconds. I will not. He's gonna try to ram me because he's got that heavy M10. Is he gonna go around or is he gonna come this way? Shh. I backed into him. Backed into him. All right, there you go. Just a quick example. T78. You know, I wasn't able to really use the. Wasn't really able to use the nice mobility. I sort of went to one spot. Probably an opportunity about mid-game to move up and maybe try to help in the middle right there. I did spend some time messing around with the guys on the hill when I probably should have been concentrating on the heavy area. But if I'd have moved up, I probably would have 8 shots from the T25/2, and there was still the Basante with its auto reloader thing going on. But just a quick example then there of Tier 6 TD. I did okay, not amazing. 1,503 kills. Team wasn't, team not found, right? Wow, team sucked. I stunk, they stunk. Actually did okay. So, Tier 6 TDs, guys. Let me know what you think is the best Tier 6. Like I said, I think it's the, let's go to it here. We're going to say, in Guido's opinion, the number 1 is the Excalibur, as strange as that may sound. I think there's valid arguments for why you might say that's not true. A really solid and with a good argument, number 2 or potentially to 1 is going to be the T78 right there. And for number 3, what did I even say for number 3? AT8? I think Dark Horse AT8. And there you have it. You guys have a good one. We will see ya.